Do you know why the children stopped screaming in 1883, but never stopped singing? Do you know what's still standing in the dark beneath Rose Hill, waiting in rooms that were never meant to be opened? Do you know how many investigators went up to those ruins, and how many of them are still there? Now look at this. The air in Covington, Tennessee hung thick with August heat, the kind that made asphalt shimmer and turned after into a slow-motion dream. Maya Chan wiped sweat from her forehead as she navigated her rental car down Main Street, past the faded storefronts and empty sidewalks. Population 9,000. The sign had read. It felt more like 900. She wasn't supposed to be here. 3 weeks ago, she'd been investigating labor trafficking networks in Southeast Asia for the International Justice Coalition. Then came the email, forwarded 3 times, sender unknown, containing a single photograph and 4 words: "They're still finding bodies." The photograph showed a blackened metal box, partially open, revealing water-stained pages covered in cramped handwriting. In the corner, barely visible, "Rose Hill Home for Orphaned Youth, 1882. Maya had ignored it at first. Historical mysteries weren't her beat. But then she'd made the mistake of running a background search on Rose Hill. What she found, or rather what she didn't find, had pulled her across an ocean and into this forgotten corner of Tennessee. The Shelby County Historical Society occupied a converted bank building at the end of Main Street. Inside, the air conditioning struggled against the heat, and dust motes danced in shafts of afternoon light. Behind the front desk sat a woman in her 70s, reading glasses perched on her nose. "Help you?" she asked, without looking up. "I'm looking for information about Rose Hill Orphanage," Maya said, "the one that burned down in 1883. The woman's pen stopped mid-stroke. She looked up slowly, studying Maya with eyes that had seen too many summers in this town. "You a reporter, researcher, independent? We get a lot of those lately." The woman, her name tag read Helen Pritchard, closed her ledger. "Ever since they found that box, I read about it online. Construction workers found it under a church hall, under the floorboards of what used to be a church hall. Building was condemned 15 years ago. They were finally tearing it down when," Helen paused, "when they found things they shouldn't have." Maya leaned forward. "The ledger, among other things." Helen stood, her chair scraping against linoleum. "You want to see it, don't you?" "They all do. If it's available it's in the back. State Archives sent it back after they finished their examination. Said we could keep it since it's of local historical significance." The way she said it made the phrase sound like a curse. "Come on then, but I'm warning you. Once you start looking into Rose Hill, it tends to look back." The ledger sat in a climate-controlled case, in a windowless back room. Even through the glass, Maya could see the water damage, the way the leather binding had warped and cracked. Helen unlocked the case with a small key. "You can't touch it directly," she said, "but you can photograph it. Most people spend about an hour here, then they leave and never come back." "Why?" Helen didn't answer. She simply opened the ledger to the first page. The handwriting was elegant, precise, the product of someone educated in an era when penmanship mattered. "Rose Hill Home for Orphaned Youth, Register of Inmates, established June 1882. Maya began photographing each page, her camera clicking in the silence. Names scrolled past: Thomas Wright, age 11, Mary Sullivan, age 6, Patrick O'Connor, age 9. Each entry included the child's age, date of admission, and a brief notation about their character: obedient, willful, quiet, prone to night terrors. It was on page 17 that Maya noticed the marks in the margins, small X's, drawn in faded pencil next to certain names. She counted them quickly, 18 in total. Next to Ellen Pike, age 7, someone had written in tiny script, "Transferred May 9, 1883, but there was another mark there too, so faint she almost missed it, a number, 234R. Maya flipped ahead, looking for other names with X's. Each one had a similar notation: Samuel Brown, age 4 to 236R, Doy Kellum, age 10 to 239R, "What does the R stand for?" she asked. Helen had been standing by the door, arms crossed. "Nobody knows." The woman who investigated this, Julia Whitmore, she had theories, but she never published them. Julia Whitmore, the archivist, former archivist, she requested leave in January and never came back. Last anyone heard, she was in Memphis working on some kind of podcast, but the podcast never aired. Helen's voice dropped. Her assistant, a grad student named Nolan, disappeared around the same time. They found his car at the investigation site, keys still in the ignition. Maya's pulse quickened. "What investigation site?" "The Rose Hill property. It's about 40 minutes from here, up in the hills." After they found the ledger, Julia got permission to do some excavating. Said she was looking for structural remains, historical artifacts. Helen paused. What she found was a lot worse than artifacts. The final page of the ledger showed the last entries, dated May 11, 1883. The handwriting had changed, the elegant script replaced by something more frantic, more desperate, and at the bottom, in trembling ink that had bled through the paper, "Not fire, not accident. They are still here." Maya photographed it 3 times, making sure her camera captured every word. When she looked up, Helen was watching her with an expression that might have been pity. "The official story says 12 children died in the fire," Helen said. "The ledger lists 43 names. You do the math. Where are the other 31? That's what Julia wanted to know. Helen locked the case, and that's when things got complicated. Maya spent the rest of the afternoon in the Historical Society's archive room, pulling file after yellowed file. The Rose Hill fire had been front-page news in June 1883. Tragedy at County Orphanage. 12 souls lost to flames. The article described how the fire had started in the kitchen around midnight, how Superintendent Elijah Carr and his staff had tried valiantly to save the children, how 12 little souls had perished before help could arrive. It was a tragic story. It was also full of holes. Maya made a list. 1. The fire report had been amended twice, each time reducing the number of casualties. 2. No autopsy reports existed for any of the 12 victims. 3. Superintendent Carr disappeared 2 weeks after the fire. No death certificate. No travel records. 4. The orphanage's funding records stopped abruptly in March 1883, 2 months before the fire. 5. According to census data, Rose Hill housed 63 children in 1882. The ledger listed 43. Where were the other 20? By 5 o'clock, when Helen came to tell her they were closing, Maya had filled 2 notebooks with questions and found answers to none of them. "There's a motel on Route 7, Helen said as Maya packed up her things. "Clean rooms, cheap rates. If you're planning to visit the site, you'll want to start early. Roads up there aren't maintained anymore." "You've been there?" Helen's jaw tightened. "Once, about a month after Julius' last visit. County sheriff asked me to accompany him, see if anything looked disturbed." She pulled her cardigan tighter. "Despite the heat, we didn't make it past the foundation. Something about that place. It's like the air doesn't move right. Like it's waiting. Waiting for what? For someone stupid enough to ask the wrong questions." Maya almost smiled. "That's kind of my job." "Then God help you." Helen walked her to the door. "One more thing. Julia left something here before she disappeared. A box of research materials. I never opened it. Felt like prying. But if you're going to pick up where she left off." She disappeared into the back room and returned with a cardboard file box, sealed with packing tape. Maya took it carefully. "Did she say anything when she dropped this off?" "Just one thing," she said. "If I don't come back, make sure someone keeps saying their names." I asked whose names. She said, "All of them." The motel room smelled of bleach and old carpet. Maya set the file box on the desk, ordered takeout from the only restaurant still open, and spent the next 3 hours going through Julia Whitmore's research. The woman had been thorough, obsessive even. The box contained photocopies of funding requisitions from the Tennessee Department of Education, all signed by someone named G. Harrow, a hand-drawn map of the Rose Hill property with notations in red ink. Sub-level 1, storage quarantine, photographs of the excavation site, showing a rusted metal hatch partially buried in scorched brick. A transcript of an interview with someone named Cora Lang, dated October 2023. Pages torn from a journal, the handwriting increasingly frantic. Not just punishment, something else, something meant to change them. The interview transcript made Maya's skin crawl. JW. Can you describe what you remember about the sublevel? CL. They called it the quiet place. If you cried too much or wet the bed, they'd take you down there. Most came back, some didn't. JW. Did anyone ever explain what happened to the children who didn't come back? CL. Sister Enid said they'd been sent to a better home, but we could hear them sometimes through the floorboards. At night, they sounded different, like they were trying to remember how to talk. Maya set down the transcript and stared at the wall. This wasn't just about a fire covering up negligence or abuse. This was something methodical, systematic. At the bottom of the box, wrapped in tissue paper, was a small enameled pin shaped like an angel. A note attached in Julia's handwriting, found in sublevel 1, room 3. Same design appears on orphanage staff uniforms. In 1882 photographs, Maya photographed everything, uploading the images to an encrypted cloud server. Then, she opened her laptop and began searching for more information about G. Harrow. It didn't take long to find him. Gideon Harrow, coal magnate, philanthropist, founder of the Harrow Foundation for Christian Youth. He'd funded orphanages across Tennessee, Kentucky, and West Virginia between 1878 and 1883. His foundation's stated mission: to reform wayward children through discipline, labor, and moral instruction. But there was a darker thread running through his biography. 3 of his child labor colonies had been shut down following worker deaths. A mining operation in eastern Tennessee had collapsed in 1879, killing 7 children. The official cause: structural failure due to flooding. An unofficial report buried in state archives. Children worked 16-hour shifts with inadequate ventilation and no safety equipment. Harrow had died in 1891, but his foundation had continued until 1903, when it was quietly dissolved. No explanation given. Maya leaned back in her chair. Harrow had money, influence, and access to vulnerable children. He'd built a network of institutions across 3 states, and somewhere in that network, children had started disappearing. She looked at the map of Rose Hill again, at the red notation, sub-level 1. Julia had found 1 level, but according to her notes, she'd suspected there were more. Maya made a decision. Tomorrow, she'd visit the Rose Hill site. She'd document everything she could find, and then she'd figure out what happened to Julia Whitmore and to the 31 children who'd never made it into any official record. She was about to close her laptop when a new email arrived. No subject line. The sender's address was a string of random characters. The email contained a single attachment, an audio file labeled RH_final_recording_JW MP3. Maya's hand hovered over the trackpad. She shouldn't open it. Unknown sender, suspicious file. Every cybersecurity protocol screamed, "Don't click." She clicked. Static crackled through her laptop speakers. Then Julia Whitmore's voice, breathless and strained. "If you're hearing this, I either couldn't make it out or I chose not to. The 3rd level exists. I found the entrance behind room 236. The children, the ones marked with X's, they're not dead, they're arrested." Like time crystallized their silence and turned it into something that persists. "I can feel them watching. I can hear them breathing in the walls. And there's something else down here, something that listens, something that feeds on." The recording cut to white noise. Then, barely audible beneath the static, a sound that made Maya's blood run cold. Children singing, dozens of voices, thin and high, repeating the same phrase over and over. "We stood still, we stood still, we stood still." The recording ended. Maya sat in the darkness of her motel room, her heart hammering. She checked the email again. The sender's address had changed. Now it read, "Do not forget us at." Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "The gate is open. He's waiting. DKDK Doi Kellum." The 10-year-old girl from the ledger, marked with an X, numbered 239R, Doi Kellum, who would be over 150 years old. Maya didn't sleep that night. She sat at the desk, reviewing Julia's notes over and over, trying to make sense of what she'd heard. By the time dawn broke over Covington, she'd made a new list. Known facts: 43 children admitted to Rose Hill between 1882 to 1883, 12 confirmed deaths in the fire, 18 children marked with X's in the ledger, no death certificates, no transfer records, 13 children unaccounted for, multiple sublevels beneath the main building. Julia Whitmore disappeared. Investigating the site. Someone or something is still leaving messages. Working theory: Rose Hill wasn't just an orphanage, it was an experimental facility. The sublevels were deliberate, the X's were designations, and whatever was being tested on those children. It didn't end when the building burned. Maya packed her equipment: camera, portable lights, backup batteries, GPS tracker, satellite phone. She printed out Julia's map and marked the location of the original hatch. At 7 a.m., she checked out of the motel. The clerk, a young man with tired eyes, watched her load her gear into the car. "You going up to Rose Hill?" he asked. "How'd you know?" "Because that's where they all go. The ones who ask about the fire." He leaned against the counter. "My grandmother grew up near there. She used to say you could hear children singing in the woods on quiet nights. Said it had been happening since before she was born." "Did she ever investigate?" "She knew better." He handed Maya her receipt. "There's a reason nobody from around here goes near that place. Some doors shouldn't be opened." Maya smiled tightly. "I specialize in doors that shouldn't be opened." "Then I'll say a prayer for you, because if you find what you're looking for up there, you're gonna wish you hadn't." The road to Rose Hill deteriorated after the first 10 miles. Pavement gave way to gravel, then to packed dirt rutted with erosion. Maya's rental car struggled up the incline, branches scraping against the doors. According to her GPS, she was close, but the satellite signal kept cutting out, leaving her to navigate by Julia's hand-drawn map. She found the property marker at 9:47 a.m. A rusted metal stake half hidden by kudzu. The words "Rose Hill" barely visible beneath decades of corrosion. Beyond it, a barely visible trail led into dense forest. Maya parked and shouldered her pack. The morning was hot, but here beneath the canopy, the air felt cold, warm, like stepping into a refrigerator. In the middle of summer, she followed the trail for 20 minutes before the trees opened onto a clearing. The foundation of Rose Hill sprawled before her, stone walls barely visible beneath vines and bramble. The skeleton of a building that had once housed 43 children. The main structure was easy to identify: a rectangular footprint roughly 80 feet long, with the remains of a chimney stack at one end. But there on the western edge was something else: the outline of a secondary building, connected to the main structure by what would have been a covered walkway. The south wing. Maya pulled out Julia's map and oriented herself. According to the excavation notes, the original hatch had been found near the southeast corner, beneath what would have been the kitchen pantry. She made her way carefully over rubble and roots, using her phone to photograph everything. The hatch was still there, partially uncovered. Someone, Julia presumably, had cleared away the brick and soil, revealing a rectangular metal door set flush with the ground. The metal had corroded to a deep rust brown, and someone had spray painted a warning in fresh orange paint: "Condemned. Do not enter." Maya knelt beside it. The hatch had no external handle, just a small gap where the metal had warped slightly. She wedged her fingers into the gap and pulled. The metal groaned but didn't budge. She tried again, putting her full weight into it. This time something gave, a deep metallic shriek that echoed across the clearing, and the hatch lifted an inch. Cold air rushed out, carrying a smell of earth and something else, something organic and wrong. Maya pulled out her flashlight and shone it into the gap. Metal stairs descended into darkness. She could see maybe 10 feet down before the beam was swallowed by shadow. "This is a bad idea," whispered the rational part of her brain. "You should call the authorities. Get proper equipment. Wait for backup." But Maya had spent 15 years investigating human trafficking rings, cartel operations, and corporate corruption. She knew how evidence disappeared when the wrong people got involved, how cases got buried, witnesses vanished, truth got smoothed over with bureaucratic efficiency. If there were answers down there, she needed to find them now. She attached her headlamp, checked her satellite phone's signal, weak but present, and began her descent. The stairs were steep and narrow, designed for people smaller than her. Children, she realized with a chill. The walls pressed in on both sides, rough stone lined with wooden support beams that looked far too old to be trustworthy. 20 steps down, her headlamp caught something carved into the wall, a crude drawing of a circle with 3 intersecting lines, the same symbol she'd seen in Julia's photographs. 30 steps down, the temperature dropped further, her breath misted in the beam of light. At 40 steps, the staircase ended. Maya found herself in a narrow corridor, about 30 feet long. Wooden doors lined both sides, 6 in total. Each door had a small sliding panel at eye level, the kind used to observe prisoners without being seen. Her hands trembled as she approached the first door. The wood was swollen with moisture and age, but the hinges still worked. She pushed it open. The room was small, maybe 8 feet by 6 feet. A rusted bed frame was bolted to the floor. Iron manacles hung from the wall, sized for small wrists, and above the bed, carved into a wooden plank with something sharp and desperate. "I promise I'll be good." Maya's stomach turned. This wasn't a dormitory. It was a cell. She moved to the second room. The smell hit her first, decay and mildew and something sweeter underneath. The room contained no bed, just a pile of fabric that had rotted into an unrecognizable mass. A small wooden doll lay on top, its arms broken off at the shoulders, and on the wall, scratched so deep the stone had cracked. "Let me out, let me out, let me out, let me out." The phrase repeated 27 times, each iteration slightly more frantic, before stopping abruptly mid-word. Maya photographed everything, her camera flash illuminating details she wished she couldn't see. The deep gouges where small fingers had clawed at the door, the dark stains on the floor that might have been blood, the way the walls seemed to curve inward slightly, as if the room had been designed to feel smaller than it was. The third room was different. No bed, no chains, just a bucket in the corner, and a faint reddish-brown stain along the back wall. Old blood, turned rust-colored with time. Something small and metallic glinted near the baseboard. Maya picked it up carefully, an enameled pin shaped like an angel, identical to the one Julia had found. She was about to leave when her flashlight caught something else. Writing above the doorframe, barely visible beneath layers of grime. "Don't forget us." Maya stood in the corridor, trying to process what she was seeing. This level had been deliberately constructed. The rooms were too uniform, too purposeful. This wasn't some improvised punishment space. It had been planned, built with specific intentions. She pulled out Julia's map. According to the notes, there should be a second level below this one. The entrance was supposed to be near room 236, but there were only 6 rooms here, numbered crudely on the doors with fading paint. 201, 202, 203, 204, 205, 206. Maya walked the length of the corridor twice, examining every wall, every corner. Nothing. Either Julia's information was wrong or she stopped. The corridor wall on the far end looked different. The stones didn't quite line up, and when she pressed against them, they felt slightly hollow. Maya pulled out a small crowbar from her pack and wedged it into a gap between stones. The mortar crumbled easily. Too easily. This section had been sealed recently, maybe in the last few decades. It took 20 minutes of careful prying to loosen enough stones to reveal what lay behind. Another staircase, this one descending even deeper into the earth. Maya checked her phone. No signal. The satellite phone showed 1 bar, barely enough for a text. She typed out a message to her editor. At Rose Hill site, found sublevel 1, evidence of prolonged child confinement. Possible additional levels. Below, if you don't hear from me in 6 hours, send authorities to coordinates attached. The message took 90 seconds to send. Then the satellite phone screen flickered and went dark. Battery should have lasted 12 hours. Maya thought distantly. I charged it this morning. She had a choice. Go back up, get more equipment, return with proper backup, or continue down alone and risk not making it back at all. Maya thought of the children marked with X's, of Julia Whitmore, who'd made the same choice and vanished, of the 43 names in that ledger, most of whom had been deliberately erased from history. She adjusted her headlamp and started down the second staircase. The second level was colder than the first, not the coolness of underground spaces, but an active, aggressive cold that seemed to leach heat from her body. Maya's breath came out in white clouds. The architecture changed here. The rough stone walls of the first level gave way to something more deliberate. Carved stone blocks fitted together with precision, almost like a crypt. The corridor was wider, the ceiling higher, and unlike the first level, there were no doors, just open archways leading to darkness. Maya counted 13 archways as she walked. Through each one, her headlamp revealed identical spaces, small chambers maybe 10 feet square, completely empty except for burn marks on the floors, not scorch marks from fire, but circular patterns, like something had been repeatedly placed there and generated intense heat. In the 7th chamber, she found more writing, not scratched into the walls like above, but carved with precision into the stone floor. Obedient or gone. The letters were 3 inches deep, cut with tools, not desperate fingernails. Maya photographed everything, her camera's flash creating stark shadows that made the chambers look even more wrong. There was something about the proportions that bothered her, something her brain couldn't quite process. The rooms felt both too large and too small simultaneously, as if the space itself was unstable. At the end of the corridor, the passage opened into a larger chamber, circular, maybe 20 feet in diameter. The ceiling rose into darkness beyond her headlamp's reach, and carved into the floor in a perfect circle were metal plates, small child-sized footprints, 19 pairs in total. Maya's pulse thundered in her ears. She'd seen this before. Julia had described it in her notes, like they were meant to stand there, like they were on display. In the center of the circle was a hole, a shaft that descended vertically into absolute darkness. Maya dropped a stone into it and counted. 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi, 4 Mississippi, 5. No sound. The stone fell into silence. This wasn't a disposal shaft. It was something else. An opening, maybe, or a mouth. Maya circled the chamber slowly, examining the walls. Carved into the stone at regular intervals were symbols she didn't recognize. Not Latin, not any alphabet she knew. Geometric patterns that seemed to shift when she looked at them directly. And then she found the inscription, carved in Latin above what might have been an altar. Ex obedienti fiant invisibilis. From the obedient, the invisible are made. Maya's hands shook as she photographed it. This wasn't just cruelty, it was ritualistic. Doctrinal. Someone had built this place with a specific purpose, and that purpose involved making children disappear, not just from records, but from existence itself. She found the ledger in a narrow storage room, connected to the main chamber. It sat on a stone shelf, wrapped in oilcloth that had somehow protected it from the moisture that destroyed everything else down here. Maya unwrapped it carefully. The ledger was smaller than the one found in the church, bound in plain leather with no title. She opened it. Names, just first names, each followed by a 3-digit number, and the letter R. Ellen 234R, Samuel 236R, Doy 239R, Clara 241R, William 243R, 27 names total, and at the bottom of the last page, stamped in fading ink, RH Gate Division, Gate Division. Gate to where? Maya was still trying to process this when she heard it. Footsteps above her, not on the first level. Farther up on the surface, multiple sets of feet, moving with purpose. Her satellite phone buzzed suddenly, startling her. The screen flickered to life, showing a single text message from an unknown number. You found the second level. Good. Now look for room 236. The third entrance is behind the west wall. He's been waiting for someone who asks the right questions. DK Doi Kellam. Again, but before Maya could process this, the footsteps above changed direction. They were descending into the first sub-level. Maya killed her headlamp and pressed herself against the wall, heart hammering. The footsteps were deliberate, measured. Someone who knew these spaces well. They reached the first level corridor and paused, then continued toward the concealed entrance to the second level. Whoever was up there knew she was here. Maya had seconds to decide. She could try to go back up, confront whoever was coming, or she could go deeper, find this supposed third level, and hope there was another way out. The footsteps grew closer. Maya ran. She sprinted through the circular chamber, past the metal footprints and the shaft that swallowed sound, searching desperately for any sign of room 236. But there were no numbers here, no markers, just those identical archways leading to identical chambers with their identical burn patterns. Unless Maya stopped at the seventh archway. She'd seen something earlier, dismissed it as a trick of the light. She shone her flashlight at the floor near the entrance. There, carved small and faint, 236. She ducked inside. The chamber looked the same as the others, but when she examined the west wall more carefully, she found it. A vertical seam in the stone, barely visible unless you were looking for it. Maya wedged her crowbar into the gap and pulled. The wall section swung inward with surprising ease, revealing a narrow passage beyond. Cold air rushed past her, carrying a smell of decay and something else. Incense maybe, or ceremonial oils. The footsteps entered the circular chamber behind her. Maya squeezed through the opening and pulled the stone door shut behind her. It closed with a soft click, leaving her in absolute darkness. She waited, breath held, listening. The footsteps circled the chamber once, twice, then stopped. A voice called out, male, elderly, with a southern accent that spoke of old money and older cruelty. I know you're here, Miss Chen. Julia Whitmore made it this far too. She thought she could expose us, bring authorities down on this place. But some truths aren't meant to be shared. Some doors lead to understandings that would break the world. Maya's blood ran cold. They knew her name. They'd been tracking her. The children you're looking for. The voice continued. They're not gone. They're transformed, perfected. The Rose Hill experiment didn't end in 1883. It evolved. We've spent 140 years learning how to refine the process, how to make obedience permanent, how to make silence sacred. The footsteps moved away, back toward the entrance. Julia found the third level. The voice called out. She found the children, and now she's with them, teaching them how to remain still, how to wait for the next researcher, the next journalist, the next fool who thinks they can bring light to what must remain dark. The footsteps faded, then silence. Maya waited 5 full minutes before she dared turn on her flashlight. She was in a crude tunnel, barely wide enough for her shoulders, sloping downward at a sharp angle. The walls were unfinished stone, and every few feet, she found more of those strange symbols carved into the rock. She had no choice now. The way back was blocked, or worse, occupied by someone who clearly wanted her to disappear like Julia had. The only way out was down. Maya descended into the third level, where the children marked with X's were waiting, and where, according to the voice above, Julia Whitmore had joined them in their eternal obedient silence. The tunnel ended abruptly at a metal door, newer than anything else Maya had encountered. Industrial hinges, electronic lock, but the keypad was dark, dead. Someone had disabled it from the inside. Maya pushed. The doors swung open. The third level was nothing like the ones above. This was modern construction, Concrete floors, fluorescent lights flickering weakly from emergency batteries, walls lined with observation windows, a research facility built into the bones of something much older. The first room contained filing cabinets, all empty except for scattered papers. Maya grabbed one, a medical form dated 2019, patient 239R. It read, "Cognitive baseline established, behavioral modification protocol initiated. Patient 239R, Doi Kellam's number." Maya's hands trembled. This wasn't historical. This was active. She moved through the facility, her footsteps echoing. More rooms, examination tables with restraints, cabinets full of psychiatric medications, walls covered in charts tracking something called silence compliance scores. And then she found the observation hall. 19 windows looked into 19 identical cells. In each cell stood a child, or what had been a child. They were impossibly still, faces blank, eyes open but unseeing. Some wore clothes from different eras, Victorian dresses, Depression-era overalls, 1950s playsuits, modern jeans. They stood on metal plates identical to the ones in the chamber above, frozen mid-breath, like statues that almost remembered how to move. Maya pressed her hand against the glass of cell 239. The girl inside was maybe 10 years old, with dark hair and hollow eyes. A brass nameplate beside the window read, "D. Kellam, admitted 1882 status, maintained." "They're not dead," said a voice behind her. Maya spun around. An elderly woman stood in the doorway. White hair, gentle face, wearing a cardigan despite the cold. It took Maya a moment to place her. "Helen Pritchard, the Historical Society clerk. You're part of this," Maya breathed. "I'm the keeper of this," Helen corrected softly. "My grandmother held this role, her mother before her. We've maintained the Rose Hill Project for 5 generations, ensuring the children remain comfortable." "Comfortable?" Maya's voice cracked. "They're prisoners. They've been prisoners for over a century. They're preserved," Helen said firmly. "The Harrow Foundation discovered something remarkable, a way to arrest development, to crystallize obedience into a permanent state. These children were destined for brutal lives, factory work, prostitution, starvation. We gave them peace, eternal perfect peace." Maya looked back at the frozen children. "Where's Julia Whitmore?" Helen's expression softened with genuine sadness. "Cell 17. She wouldn't listen. She tried to free them, to reverse the process. But once you understand what they are, once you truly see them, you become part of the observation. The facility requires watchers. Always has. You're insane." "I'm faithful." Helen pulled something from her pocket, a syringe filled with amber liquid, the same treatment the children received. "It doesn't hurt. You'll simply stop. Stop questioning. Stop struggling. Stop remembering why any of this mattered. And you'll watch over them, like Julia does now, like I will, eventually." Maya backed away, but Helen was faster than she looked. The older woman grabbed Maya's arm with surprising strength, needle raised. Maya drove her elbow into Helen's ribs. The woman gasped, stumbled. The syringe clattered across the floor. Maya ran. Behind her, Helen's voice called out, no longer gentle, "The exits are sealed. This facility was designed to contain. You can't." Maya wasn't listening. She sprinted through corridors, searching desperately for stairs, ladders, any way up. She found a utility room, a maintenance shaft with a rusted ladder leading upward into darkness. She climbed. Her muscles screamed. The ladder rungs were slick with condensation. Somewhere below, she heard Helen calling for help, other voices responding. How many people were maintaining this horror? The shaft opened into a sub-basement, not part of the original structure. Modern storage space. Maya found an exit door, kicked it open, and stumbled into a parking garage. Above ground. Finally above ground. Her rental car was gone. They'd moved it, but she saw another vehicle. Helen's old Buick. Keys probably in the office. No time for that. Maya ran into the woods, pulling out her phone. Still no signal. The satellite phone was dead, but she had her camera, full of evidence. She had documentation. She had proof. She just had to make it to town. The woods seemed endless. Maya ran until her lungs burned, following the slope downward, knowing it would eventually lead to the access road. Behind her, she heard engines, vehicles searching. It took 40 minutes to reach the main road. A logging truck rounded the bend, and Maya threw herself into its path, waving frantically. The truck stopped. "Jesus, lady," the driver shouted. "You trying to get killed?" "Please," Maya gasped. "Please, I need to get to town." "Police station. It's an emergency." The driver, a young man with kind eyes, looked at her torn clothes, her wild expression. "Get in." At the Covington police station, Maya told her story to a detective who listened with increasing skepticism. When she showed him the photographs on her camera, his expression changed. "Stay here," he said, and left the room. He returned with the sheriff, who studied the images with a frown. "Where exactly did you take these?" "The Rose Hill property. There's a research facility underground. They're keeping children in some kind of suspended state." "Ma'am," the sheriff interrupted gently, "there's no facility at Rose Hill. That property's been abandoned for over a century. We've conducted multiple surveys." "Then explain these photographs." The sheriff and detective exchanged looks. "We'll send a team up there," the sheriff said finally, "but I have to tell you, we've had other people make similar claims. They all disappeared." Maya finished bitterly. "Julia Whitmore, Nolan, her assistant. How many others?" The sheriff's jaw tightened. "We'll investigate. In the meantime, I'm recommending you leave Covington for your own safety." Maya understood the subtext. They couldn't protect her. Whatever power maintained Rose Hill extended into local law enforcement. She left the station and drove straight to Memphis. From her hotel room, she uploaded every photograph, every document, every recording to multiple encrypted servers. She sent packages of evidence to 3 different news organizations and 2 federal agencies. Then she waited for the consequences. They came 3 days later. A breaking news story about a vast underground facility discovered at a historical site in Tennessee. Federal authorities conducting raids, arrests of prominent local figures. The revelation of what news anchors called one of the most disturbing cases of prolonged false imprisonment in American history. But the children weren't mentioned. 19 cells found empty, the report said, evidence of occupancy, but no victims recovered. Maya knew better. She'd seen them. She'd photographed them. The children were gone, moved, hidden, or perhaps finally released into whatever passed for freedom. After 140 years of frozen obedience, a week later, Maya received a package at her office. No return address. Inside was a single enameled pin shaped like an angel, and a note in a child's handwriting. "Thank you for saying our names. We can rest now." Maya kept the pin on her desk. Sometimes, late at night when the office was empty, she thought she heard children singing, not the desperate loop from Julia's recording, but something gentler, something that sounded almost like forgiveness. She never went back to Covington, but she kept investigating, finding other facilities, other networks, other places where children disappeared into systems designed to break them. And whenever she found their names, she said them aloud, all of them, because some doors needed to be opened, even if the light that spilled out revealed horrors the world would rather forget. The children deserved to be remembered, even the ones who never left.